What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today I want to talk a little bit about what we are hearing from OTAs and what we are seeing at OTAs as they continue, again, under a new regime, a new culture, and a new young, competitive vibe and spirit that is happening under head coach Aaron Glenn and, of course, the GM Darren Muji as well. And here's the thing. Back in April when there was the draft, right? First of all, here, if you were with Jets latest, you know I nailed the Armand Membu pick. You know I nailed the Mason Taylor pick, right? But one of the picks that a lot of people, quite frankly, did not like that the Jets made was their fourth round pick, the wide receiver out of Georgia, Arian Smith. But I gotta tell you something. Ever since he's actually been with the Jets and actually on the field in practice, first of all, Aaron Glenn loved what he brought to the table because you can't teach 4.3 speed. Darren Muji said the same thing. Tanner Engstrand talked about being intentional in how they were going to use him. And while people were throwing shade left and right at the fourth round pick, he is flashing left and right at practice. He is getting open on nearly every route. There are reports out there that his stop and start is like a joystick, for example. And going in to OTAs or going into the draft, everyone was talking about how Arian Smith had a drop problem at Georgia. And he did leave Power 5 conferences in terms of drops last year at Georgia. But all evidence is that he is a hard worker, that he understands that he is working on this, and that he is being coached up specifically on bringing it in. Right? And these are things you can teach. You know what you can't teach is the 4.2, 4.3 speed, but I think it is very exciting that he is impressing at camp and using the skill set that we talked about. I have talked about kind of the different roles of wide receivers here, right? And that's part of the reason why I actually think the Jets are satisfied with their wide receiver room. I do not think they're going to go ahead and sign a Keenan Allen, go ahead and sign an Amari Cooper. They have G5, Garrett Wilson, as their alpha, as their leading receiver, right? You got a guy like Josh Reynolds, very sure-handed veteran who can make that tough play over the middle. You got Mason Taylor, who's going to be a tight end, another sure-handed guy. And then you also have now Arian Smith, who's going to be able to take the top off the defense. And all that's going to do, whether he has a drop problem or not, guess what? No safety in the NFL on defense is going to be like, oh, he's got a drop problem. I can't cover. You know what he's got to do? Turn around and run. Give cushion to Arian Smith when he's going over the top. And what does that mean? More room underneath for guys like Reynolds, like Wilson, like Mason Taylor. So the fact that he is coming up real big early on, I believe means he may be able to crack the top of the wide receiver depth chart. I think he could be the third wide receiver in 3 wideout sets, along with who I think will be Josh Reynolds and, of course, Garrett Wilson. And remember, okay, he led Georgia in receiving yards last year with 817 yards on 48 receptions. That is 17 yards per catch. He had 4 touchdowns as well. That 17 yards a catch shows the big play potential of a guy like Arian Smith. And remember, he was also literally on the Georgia track team. This is actually world-class speed. The Georgia track team that finished second in the 4x100 relay, okay? So that's why I think Arian Smith has a role. I think the drop issue was well overblown. He's continuing to work at it. And the idea that that skill set is now showing up at OTAs and impressing people, I believe means he may be the number 3 wide receiver along with Garrett Wilson. And in my opinion, it's going to be Josh Reynolds. And remember, even after that, Malachi Corley, the Yak King, could be there. Tyler Johnson, another guy who we signed, a decent all-around wide receiver, and Alan Lazard, who may be better kind of in blocking sets, short yardage sets, red zone sets, but we'll get more to him in a minute. So I do believe Arian Smith impressing overall early on, and that is a good thing. A lot of people think we may have gone from getting shade on our 4th round pick to our 4th round pick now potentially being a steal with the Georgia wideout. Let's keep an eye out on Arian and his continued development as we move it through OTAs and into minicamp. The other thing, I said what we're seeing at OTAs. Another thing is what we are hearing at OTAs all week. I'm going to give you quotes from offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, special teams, but Justin Fields, again, as the QB1, who we are organizing around and rallying around, he is once again kind of inspired and excited about the potential of this Jets offense now that they are installing it, and talking about the new OC Tanner Engstrand and what he kind of can do coming on over from Detroit. Listen to what Justin Fields had to say. He goes, "I think the sky's the limit for this team and this offense, but we do have a long ways to go." Okay. Guys are locked in trying to get everything down, but once we do have all the talent we need, so it's going to come down to discipline and execution when the games come. Talking about Tanner Engstrand, you can tell he's really smart and very detailed installing the plays. He's putting a ton on our plate, and it'll help us in the long run. Remember, Tanner Engstrand also came over from Detroit, and that Detroit offense was good. 395 yards a game. 259 yards in the passing game. That was second in the NFL. They scored over 27 points a game. Fifth best in the NFL. And also, check this out. In the red zone, top 6 in the NFL. Third down conversions, top 7 in the NFL. So clearly, Engstrand has, seen what good offense looks like. He's been credited for the creativity of a lot of that Detroit offense, and Justin Fields is starting to soak it all in and really does believe that, the sky is the limit, as we said. So it's going to be very exciting to see how they use the different weapons they have. I talk about the different roles of the wide receivers, the dual threat nature of Justin Fields, and what Breece Hall in that run game can do behind what everybody is saying is an improved, revamped, and one of the better young offensive lines in the entire NFL. There's even results or kind of reports out there about Braylon Allen and kind of the way he is looking and what that could be in kind of the David Montgomery role in that Sonic and Knuckles, with Breece Hall playing that Jahmyr Gibbs role, right? So a lot of excitement around Jets offense, what we are seeing, and how they are putting it all together. I also mentioned Allen Lazard, who may kind of be the blocking wide receiver in kind of sets, in situations, in play calls when that is necessary. So I want to also remember Allen Lazard, who I didn't even think was going to be on the roster, to be quite honest, restructured his deal, but that's not the reason we're bringing him up today. We're bringing him up because we want to say congratulations to Allen Lazard, who got engaged last week, okay? So we tip our cap to Allen Lazard and his, beautiful fiance. We wish them well, but I do want to remind you, Lazard did restructure his deal with the Jets to stay here for 2025. He had 37 catches, 530 yards, and 6 touchdowns last year, but wasn't really heavily used. Was 5th on the team with 60 targets. As I've mentioned, he is a very good blocking wide receiver, 6'5", 227. He was going to make $11 million. And I thought he was going to be a candidate for one of those post-June 1st caps, right, to give them cuts, to get some of that cap relief. But no, he restructured his deal, took an $8.5 million pay cut to remain with the Jets in 2025. And remember, when he originally joined us, he got a big money deal, 4 years for $44 million. He was one of the prized wide receiver free agents at that point in time. And if you remember, this was back in 2023 when the Jets were also kind of trying to lure Aaron Rodgers, right? And Lazard was one of his wide receivers in Green Bay. So many people thought that Lazard was going to be kind of part of the deal with kind of the recruiting pitch for Aaron Rodgers, right? And to be quite honest, now in Pittsburgh, where we think Aaron Rodgers may go, they just traded away their one of their wide receivers in George Pickens. So keep an eye out on Allen Lazard, because if he does Rodgers go to Pittsburgh, maybe Lazard follows him again. There is now an opening at that wide receiver 2 position in Pittsburgh. But we do congratulate Lazard and his fiance on their engagement last week. And Lazard, we thank him for restructuring the deal to be a part of these Jets. Hopefully he still is a part of these Jets, and that this offense has a role for him. The same way it looks like there could be a role for Arian Smith. There could be a role for Josh Reynolds. There could be a role for Malachi Corley. We will see how it all shakes out, and we're going to continue to monitor OTAs and minicamp as we move forward towards what should be an exciting 2025 season for the green and white. That'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. Remember, watch these videos, like these videos, subscribe to the channel, tell a Jet fan friend to tell a Jet fan friend. If you want to hear more from me, Spittin' Statistician Dane Martinez, I am the host of the FTN Fantasy Show. It is a great show over on SiriusXM, Channel 87, the fantasy channel, where we talk a lot about fantasy football getting started. Fantasy baseball is ongoing, but it's more than that. It's the NBA, NHL playoffs. We've also got over at FTN Fantasy so many great tools, data sets, simulations that give you the edge, great content, a great Discord if you want to become a better sports bettor or become a better fantasy player. But that'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. I will be back tomorrow and all week talking about more on what we saw and what we heard at OTAs last week as we move on forward to what should be a very fun 2025 season for the green and white. That'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.